Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Friday. Happy weekend. Yay, we made it through the first week of our semester. Again, I hope you're having a great morning or a great afternoon for my blocks later in the day, and I hope you're going to have a wonderful weekend. We are going to do a couple of things today. Yes, we have some items we need to get through, and then you're going to be able to work on any other classwork that you may have. So with that, you should see my agenda. We're going to be doing attendance, our email etiquette activity, and then a quick lesson and lecture for you guys to finish completing your digital notebooks. So I'm going to show you biology block 1. If you are in block 2 or block 3, don't worry. My classrooms are set up exactly the same. So you should be able to find your materials in the exact same location. Let's start with attendance. When you do go to biology block 1 or 2 or 3, you're going to go under classwork. Remember, we talked about attendance for when Miss L has a sub. I have a sub today. You still have to do the work, but I have a sub today. Go ahead, click this form. It will open for you. Tell me how you're doing today. Tell me your name. Tell me what block you're in. Tell me how you're feeling about the workload so far. And then, are you at home or are you in person? Just click that submit button. I will make sure attendance is taken care of. Next, what I would like for you to do is go to your Gmail. Yes, I want you to go to your Gmail. Go to your Gmail. What we are going to do is create a email. We're going to have a little bit of an email etiquette class. So what you're going to do is go to Gmail. You're going to send me an email. When you hit compose, that should open up a brand new draft for you guys. A brand new blank email template for you to type everything in. What you're going to do is type in Olivia.Lashover, that's me, Mrs. Lashover, or Miss L, anything works. Make sure you send this email to me. That's the recipient. If you ever email another teacher or principal, assistant principal, whatever, counselor, that's where your to is going to be. Who are you sending it to? These two, I want you to pay special note to. There is a subject, and then there is a big blank box right below it. Your subject is just a very brief statement. Why are you emailing the person? Usually it's about a test, it's about a grade, maybe some homework. Perhaps I marked you absent and we were actually there. That is where you're going to put a very brief detail. You do not write your entire message in the subject. No. Think of like a subject at school. I'm going to teach you so much in biology, but I'm not going to put everything in the subject. I would just write, hey, it's biology. So what we're going to do is we're going to send me an email. You're going to send me an email and label it weekend plans. Weekend plans. That is just a general overview of what's going on, what the subject is. Sometimes, if you're going to email me about a test, you would write test instead. But today, I want you guys to all practice and tell me about weekend plans. When you start your email to me about your weekend plans, you can say, good morning. That's a greeting. Good afternoon, good day, whatever it may be. I'm going to just start out with, and my cats are yelling in the background. I'm really sorry about that, guys. All right. My greeting, I'm going to just say, good morning, Miss L. It's really nice when you put the name in there. That way you're addressing the person. It's just a little more personable. Let's go ahead and say what our weekend plans are. My weekend plans are to watch the Super Bowl. It is going to be amazing. etc., 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 etc. And this is where I would put all that detailed information. If you were emailing me about a test, you're saying, oh, I didn't do so well on this one. Can you please unlock the other one? That is what this big box right in here is for. Always right there. You can type as much or as little in there as possible. Please do not write your entire message in the subject line. Please do not write your entire message in the subject line. Write it in here. So what I would like for you guys to do, send me an email. Tell me your weekend plans. You gonna sleep, watch Netflix? What's going on for the weekend? Shovel more snow? Super Bowl? You tell me. But I would love to hear from you guys. Don't forget, when you do end your message, put your name. You can just put your first name. You can put your nickname. I know a majority of our nicknames now, so make sure you say who it's from. This is your quick email etiquette class. Please do not write the entire message in the subject line. All right. Next thing on our agenda, we're going to quickly go through our lecture/notes. Normally I would do this in class and we'd have plenty of time to complete this. You are going to be able to pause this video and go back and forth from my lecture to your notes so you can type in the information because it is going to be for a grade. You are going to turn in your digital notebook at the completion of this. So your digital notebook, again, it should be found under Classroom. We have task 5. So those of you that have already turned it in, unsubmit it, you need to add this detail in there. Go ahead, click it, open it. You should have slides 2 and 3 completed at this point. These were from our CK12s. I will be checking those answers. So you're going to be starting on slide 4 and just working your way down all the way to the very end. And again, you can pause this video. You can split the screen. If you want to split the screen, I'm just going to show you because I don't have a whiteboard here at home with me. You can click the Alt button in the 2 brackets. And let me just go ahead and show you what that looks like. If you want to split your screen so you can have me on one side and then your notes on the other side, you hit the Alt button and the 2 bracket buttons. I'll make that really big for you guys. So the Alt button and the 2 bracket buttons, hit them at the same time. The Alt is found by the space bar. The 2 brackets are found right after the letter P, as in Paul. So if you want to split your screen, that's a nice way to do it, to go back and forth. So let me go ahead and delete this slide. All right. So with that, I'm actually going to jump over to my lecture slides. You should be able to follow along. Everything that you need to write down is bolded and underlined. So pay attention to that. It is bolded and underlined. Feel free to pause this video anytime if you need to go back and forth. So let's go ahead. Start with lab safety. Like I said, this is our science class that a lot of you are taking for the first time here at Harlem High School. It is important for us to touch on lab safety, and I thought that was just a really nice introduction to our CK12s and the other platforms that we're going to be using. So lab safety, hey guys, we're always going to follow those guidelines given by the instructor, by the teachers, whether it's me, Mr. Schultz, if it's another science teacher, if it's your sub, we're always going to listen to those directions. So we must follow directions. So I would write this down in your slide. Remember, the words you are going to write down are bolded and underlined. We are going to tie back long hair. If you can tie it back, if you can pull it back, it needs to go in a ponytail if we're doing labs. So guys, girls, everyone, we're going to tie back long hair. I would do the same. Closed-toed shoes. We're not wearing flip-flops when we're doing labs. We're not wearing flip-flops when we do labs. I will always give you a heads up for when we're going to be doing a lab. That way you can dress appropriately. Having closed-toed shoes, it just makes it a little more safe because if something were to fall and to break and it went on your feet, no, we don't want your feet to be injured. Next slide. Next slide. We are going to use gloves, goggles, and or safety aprons when instructed to do so. If we end up using a hot plate at any point, yeah, we're going to be using goggles and gloves and everything else. So chemicals, you may be doing that in chemistry class. You may need to have an apron. Listen to what your teacher tells you and definitely prepare and be safe. Broken glass, don't touch it. Don't touch it. We have a special broom. We have a special dustpan. We're going to clean it up with that, not with these. Never, ever, 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 ever eat in the lab. If we're doing a lab, no food, no drinks. We never eat in the lab. Not to mention, if you were to have food with you and you're doing a lab, and it touches the table, and then that chemical residue will touch your food and then you ingest it. No eating or drinking in the lab. We are going to be tidy individuals and always clean up our space. That just makes sense. We leave the place as we found it. And we are going to alert our teacher, whether it's me, Mr. Schultz, a sub, another science teacher. You alert your teacher immediately if something out of the ordinary occurs or you have questions. Never be shy to ask questions during the lab. Never. That's what I have for you for lab safety. We're going to start getting into the characteristics of life, and I'm so excited to talk about this one. So, characteristics of life. What is the criteria to be considered living versus not living? There's also a category called once living, but we're talking about living organisms. All living things are organisms. So that could be an animal, like my cat right up there. They won't stop. It could be animals, plants, or even single cell life forms. So you should be writing down in your next slide. It could be animals, plants is what we should be writing, or single cell life form. And they are going to embody all, please pay attention. They embody all properties of life. What does embody mean? It means they have to meet every single criteria that I am about to tell you about. They have to check all those boxes. If they don't check all those boxes, they're not living. So the organisms are going to embody all properties of life. Let that be a big alert to you guys. All properties. If they don't meet the criteria on our next slides, they're not living. If they do, we consider that a living organism. So, there are 5 criteria that we're going to talk about. Your organism or your being in question, for example, is fire alive? We've been talking about that. We need to figure out, does another organism meet all of these criteria? Our organisms are going to need energy to carry out life processes. You need to be able to take in materials or whatever it may be, go through a process. You have to have energy in order to survive. We are constantly taking in food. We process it. It gives us energy. Our cells need this. We need to do work. So we need energy to carry this out. You must be composed of 1 or more cells. 1 or more cells. Cells. You must be composed of cells. Excuse me. You must be able to respond to your environment. You must be able to grow and reproduce. And then you must maintain a stable internal environment. We have to have an internal environment that's stable, because when we're not, it's not good. That's how we get sick. You can pass away. I'm going to show you some examples later on. It'll all come together. So you must meet all 5 of these. Energy. Cells respond to your environment, grow and reproduce, and maintain that stable environment. Let's talk about energy. First, let's talk about energy. It's that ability to do work. We are going to obtain energy through resources. And it's going to be different for each living thing. So, for example, I had mentioned we take in food, we process that. Plants are going to take in energy through photosynthesis. And when we get into that, it becomes a very beautiful cyclical relationship between us and plants. So plants get their energy through photosynthesis. Fungi, fungus, they fall into a category where they begin to grow on other organisms. So for example, you ever go walking and you see a tree and it looks moldy and it has some fungus growing on it, it's getting its energy from that other organism. Either way, it's obtaining energy through a resource, whatever it may be. We must meet this criteria. Cells. Cells, cells, cells. We need one or more cells. We must be composed of these cells. Cells have structure. And we're going to get into that later on. I'm excited to talk about cells. Really, I am. But cells have structure. They have function. And they have this beautiful thing called DNA. They have genetic information that tells us who we are, how we're going to operate. DNA has genetic information. But cells also have proteins, and that is needed for structure, regulation, and function. Our cells have to be able to grow, divide, consume food, and respond to the environment. So we start with energy. Everything must consume energy. We need to have cells to be considered living. There's 2 that we've just talked about. Does fire meet that? Remember, they must meet all criteria. Let's look at another criteria. You must be able to respond to the environment. Think of your 5 senses. Think of your senses. So you can see, smell, speak, and taste. So you can taste, you can hear, and you can touch, you can feel. This is how we take in information. This is how we take in information and can respond accordingly. Remember, in class, you ever have that teacher that just, you're watching a movie, it's dark in the room, and then all of a sudden you turn on the light and you guys are like, oh gosh, you're responding to your environment. There was a change in light. You can feel when you're being touched with or having heat blown on you. You know when there is chemical contact, you can, depending on where the chemical contact is, we respond to it. It is a way that we take in information and can respond accordingly. So think of your senses: eyesight, smell, taste, hearing, feeling. We respond accordingly. That change in light, like when your teacher turns on the lights, the change in heat. If we touch a pot and we feel that it's burning hot, you let go. We respond to the environment. Does fire meet that criteria? Has it met energy, cells, and now responding to the environment? We need to be able to grow and reproduce. You must have the ability to reproduce in order to create that next generation. It could be through asexual or sexual reproduction. So it could be on your own, you're splitting apart, or with another individual, you create offspring. You must be able to grow and reproduce. Let us pause for a moment. Think about some individuals that are unable to have children. Perhaps they have something going on with their fertility, whatever it may be, and they decide to adopt a child instead. They still are given the organs to grow and reproduce. There is just a dysfunction of their organ system and their ability to reproduce. So a dysfunction is not the same thing as just not having the ability. There's just something wrong with that system, and that's okay. They still have that ability. It was just a dysfunction of it. But we as humans, we have that ability to reproduce and create the next generation. Does fire have the ability to reproduce and create the next generation? Does it meet energy, cells, being able to respond to the environment? And now, can it grow and reproduce? Does it meet all of those criteria? We must be able to maintain a stable internal environment. And when I say this, we have a balance that has to be maintained within our body or cell. Sometimes it gets thrown off. But our bodies and other organisms as well, they know they have that ability to keep that stable internal environment. And here's what I'm talking about. Have you ever gotten sick and you begin to have a fever? Your fever is your body saying, we're fighting this infection. We need to get back to normal. So a fever, while no one wants to have a fever and it's indicative of an illness or an infection, it's your body's way of saying something is wrong, something is going on, get rid of it, let's get back to normal. Your body is trying to return to normal when you produce a fever. Kind of neat to think about. So by having a fever, you're trying to get to normal so you can come back to school, so you can hang out with your friends and do all the things. Maintain that stable internal environment. When you are cold, and it is cold outside, when you are cold, you begin to shiver, shake. That is your body's response system in order to try to keep you warm. Your body is saying, you're really cold right now. Let's try to warm you up. And that's where that shivering is going to come from. When we get to summer, or for you guys playing sports, you're running around, you're working really hard, you're starting to sweat. Woo, starting to sweat. It's really warm. Your body says, this is not normal. We are running a little too hot. Start to sweat. That's your body's way of cooling down. It's saying we need to get our body temperature back to normal. That is where that sweating comes in. Our bodies do beautiful things, and maintaining that stable internal environment is necessary for us to survive. So I'm going to ask you, does fire maintain a stable internal environment? Does it meet all the criteria, the energy consumption, cells, being able to respond to the environment, grow and reproduce? Does it maintain a stable internal environment? Does it meet all of those criteria? You're going to tell me. Does it meet all of that criteria? So, what you need to do is fire alive. You're going to say yes or no. So, yes, fire is alive, or no, fire is not alive. And then tell me why or why not, using what we just talked about in our lecture slides. I'm excited to see your answers, but tell me, if fire is alive, why or why not did you put that answer? That is all I have for you guys today. Let's do one more look at our agenda. At this point, you should have done your attendance. Send me an email with your email etiquette. I'm excited to see. And let's get those lecture notes completed. Turn in your digital notebook to me. It is for a grade. I'm going to be updating grades probably all day Monday, and you guys will have a nice reflection in Skyward. You've been doing wonderful. Always feel free, like you can reach out to me via email with any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy your weekend. I will see you all on Monday. Go Kansas City. I'm excited to see you guys Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend.